Hi, welcome to my channel Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie and today I'd like to share with you a new to me technique that I tried recently. I wanted to get on here and share it with you because I'm excited about it, but also while it's fresh in my mind that I can share with you all the details. So I recently tried knitting socks from a sock tube. What is a sock tube, you may ask? Some indie dyers, or I don't know where else you would get this, but some people have a circular sock machine. Basically, you will crank not you, but somebody will crank a sock tube, or basically a big long tube, out of the yarn. And there will be live stitches at the ends held on waste yarn that will need to be unpicked so that you can knit from it. This is a sock tube dyed by Mud Punch, who is a Canadian company. This base is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 110 grams at 385 yards. It is a plumper yarn base that I just love. It wears really, really well, and I've knit multiple socks from this yarn before, but this is just the first time I am knitting it from a sock tube. The sock tube comes about 40 inches long, and I wanted to knit 2 pairs of socks out of a sock tube. And so I divided up the tube into 4 10-inch tubes. And the way I did that is I inserted a needle. I used a US 0, which is a 2mm needle, into wherever a stripe ended at about 10 inches. And then I just did that throughout, and then I could pick out the yarn by cutting it and then undoing that part so that I could get 4 tubes. I will insert a picture here on the screen so you can hopefully see what I mean by that a little bit better. And I also want to preface this by saying that this video is not a tutorial. It is by no means me telling you how to do it. I'm just sharing the process of how I did it. And especially since I've done this once, I do not feel like I'm qualified to record a tutorial. Plus, tutorials take a lot of time. And so this is not that. So I apologize for any disappointment you may have, but this video is not that. There are lots and lots of photo and video tutorials out there on how to knit socks from a sock tube, so I recommend looking for that instead. However, if you do want to stick around and find out my process on how I did it, I'll keep going. Okay, so now I've divided it into 4 10-inch tubes, and now I have to decide what I want to do with it. So I was going to knit a pair of socks for my tween and myself. My tween wanted knee-high socks, and so that actually made it quite a bit easier for my first pair to knit from this tube. And so here are the first ones. So much fun. So basically the leg was done because it was a tube. And so I picked up from the other end and I knit 2 cuffs. So first I knit 1 round with no purling, and then I knit a knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. I think it's about 1.5 inches or so. And then I did a sewn bind off on top to make sure it was extra stretchy and didn't flare out a bunch. And knowing that she was going to wear them pulled up to right below her knee, it needed to be stretchy. Now this yarn is a 64 stitch count tube, or this yarn was cranked into a 64 stitch tube, which is less negative ease than I would typically knit for my daughter or myself with this plumper yarn base. And so it actually worked out really well to have them as these tall socks to fit over her calf. And also if she wants to wear them scrunchy, they won't be too tight. And so that worked out really well here. And then when I finished with the cuffs, I went to the bottom here and picked up those stitches and knit a shadow wrap short row heel, and then a foot, and then a wedge toe. And this yarn is the Knit Picks Hawthorne fingering yarn that is the undyed base. And for her socks, I used a US 1 or 2.25mm needle to knit both the ribbing and the foot, and it worked out really well. She has tried them on, she has worn them already, and just loves them. She says they're so comfortable, and it's really fun because if you have long pants on that cover the top, the bottom just looks like a pair of white socks, but then when you lift up your pants, it's like a surprise inside. So it's super fun. I think these will also be nice to wear over like footless tights because it will keep your legs warm, but you can also easily scrunch them down without them being super bunchy, and then you don't necessarily have like 2 layers on your feet like you would if you were wearing regular tights and the socks. But yes, I think they're super, super fun. The colors I did in opposite striping sequence, and I did that for my pair as well. It just kind of worked out that way, and I love how they look, and I'm so glad that they fit her really well. So then I finished hers, and for mine, I wanted shorty socks. And so I went a little bit different on these. I knit the cuff, also with a knit one, purl one, and then a sewn bind off. And this yarn was dyed by my friend Beth. It's in a sparkle base. I'm not sure if the silver will show up, but it's like a mauvey pink color with a little bit of speckling. It's a 2-ply Stellina yarn base. I'm not sure. So I knit probably an inch or so for the cuff. And then I went down 7 stripes before I picked up to knit my heel. Now I did an afterthought heel here. And then for my socks, I picked up using a US 0 or 2mm needle. Because they are shorter, I wanted to make sure that the top cuff section was more snug. And also for the heel portion, knowing that this was going to be a little less negative ease than I would typically wear, I didn't want this section where the heel was to be too loose or baggy. And I feel like a denser fabric for the heel is always good, because where I tend to wear out my socks is at the bottom of the heel and the bottom of the toe area. And so I picked up and did an afterthought heel. Now I like to knit a few rounds before I start my decreases. So there are 4 rounds of knit even before I alternated decrease rounds with knit even rounds. And I did that until I think I had 18 and 18 stitches on my top and bottom needles. I was doing this on 32-inch magic loop. And then I decreased every round until I got to, I think, 10 stitches on top and bottom, and then I grafted those together. So this one was a rounded heel, I guess, but it's the same method for the toe. And so yeah, it turned out really nice, and there are no holes on the side. I followed an afterthought heel tutorial by Laura Penrose. I will link to that video in the description box below this video. And what she recommends is after you pick up and you are unpicking that one bit of stitches for the opening of your heel, leave the last 2 stitches unpicked on both sides. I thought that was so clever. I had not seen that before, and so that trick was pretty great. I have knit afterthought heels before, I just don't remember seeing that little trick. So that was really nice. Just leave the 2 stitches on both ends unpicked, and then that yarn that you have will be used to kind of close up any gaps if you have them when you weave them in. I don't know if it'll be visible when I show you on the inside. Not really. I mean, you can see where I wove in the end of that green, but I don't think it's really obvious where those 2 stitches were that were left unpicked. Anyway, again, I will link to that video in the description box. And then I could try them on. So then I tried on my socks, and then where my pinky toe, the top of my pinky toe would be, I put in my needles again, also US 0, 2mm. So I used magic loop. So I picked up 32 stitches on the top, 32 stitches on the bottom, and then I unraveled the yarn. So the end was this waste yarn that would be on the tube. And so I just undid the waste yarn and unraveled that yarn. It came out to be about 3 grams, which is what I knew I needed, approximately needed for the toes. And then I knit from that unraveled yarn and knit a rounded toe. So I alternated decrease rounds with knit even rounds until I got to 18 stitches on top and bottom. And then I decreased every round until I got to, I think I did 12 stitches on these, and then grafted that together. And then as a result, I ended up with 1.25 grams remaining of yarn total from the entire sock tube. I call that a win. I am so happy with how that turned out. I'll have a picture of what 1.25 grams looks like here on the screen so you can see that. But yeah, it just worked out really well, and both pairs of socks fit really well for me and my daughter. And yeah, that was a really fun experiment. Now, I do have a couple more of these sock tubes. This particular colorway I'm knitting for my husband, and so I think I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I think for him, I might do the method that I did, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't want knee-high or slouchy striped socks. So I'll probably knit him socks in the same method I knit mine, and then with the amount remaining, I'm going to knit myself a pair of socks and use the striped portion just for the leg. It'll be a shorter leg probably, and then use a solid color for the rest, kind of like how I did the socks for my daughter, but just a lot shorter. And so yeah, I think that'll be really fun. And I'm so happy to be able to get 2 pairs of socks out of each sock tube. I think that is really nice. I had bought these in December of 2024 on sale for $25 US dollars, and to get 2 pairs of socks with that using other yarns that I already have on hand to kind of complement the striping colors, I feel like is a really fun way to play with color and to get a lot out of one sock tube. I think that is everything I have to share about that process. I did enjoy it and I look forward to doing it again. So I think the method that I did for my daughter's socks, you have a lot more flexibility on what you want to do with the heel, because basically after you've knit the cuff, the leg is already knit. And so you just have to pick what kind of heel you want to do, and that could be anything, I think, right? I feel like that's a pretty open option. Like you could still do a heel flap and gusset if you wanted. You could do a fleagle heel. You could do a shadow wrap short row heel like I did here. Fish lips kiss heel. There are a lot of different options, I feel like, if you do it this way, because essentially it's just like a regular sock, but the leg is already knit. For the way I did my socks with the afterthought heel, I feel like you don't have as many options for the type of heel because you're cutting in a hole basically into the tube. I think I could still do a shadow wrap short row heel if I grafted the stitches at the end to the other side, which I have not tried, but I don't see why I couldn't do that. I'm not sure how you would do any other type of heel other than like a short row heel and grafting that top, or this afterthought heel that's essentially like a toe for the heel. If you have tried another method, do drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear what other options there are. Again, this was my first time doing it this way. I have knit other afterthought heels before, but I've not knit it from a sock tube. And so that was a really fun experiment and fun way to just try something new that wasn't completely new, but maybe a different way of getting to an end result that I've done before. So yeah, I had really a lot of fun with it. Have you ever knit from a sock tube? Is it something that you are hoping to try someday? Hopefully my video has helped answer some of the questions you might have about knitting from a sock tube, and maybe it has excited you to give it a try someday. With that, cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!